Next month, the games industry marches forward. More high-profile releases, more indie games, more games for your Steam Deck. As per usual, we will be talking about games that will probably run well on Steam Deck, and then make a special category for games that probably won't run well on Steam Deck, as per usual. Are you guys ready for this month? Because I certainly am. But if you like this video or any other video I've made, please like, subscribe, and share with all of your friends. And in the meantime, why don't you check out Off the Console? It's a brand new podcast created by me, Gardner Bryant, and Games Revealed, with guest stars occasionally. And while yes, it's on YouTube, it's also available wherever podcasts can be found, like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Check it out. The first game on our list is Knights in Tight Spaces. This is a roguelike deck builder, kind of similar to their previous game, Fights in Tight Spaces. You're essentially on a grid-based map, and your objective is to eliminate all the enemies using the cards in your deck. Unlike this developer's previous game, which is essentially that, but like as a spy thriller instead, this instead is a medieval fantasy adventure. And of course, you're traveling with a party. Deck builders don't tend to have party dynamics, so I am curious to see how this shakes out in actual gameplay. That said, the last game ran quite well on Steam Deck, and this one probably will as well. I have no reason to believe otherwise. And this game releases on March the 4th. In 2 Point Museum, you manage a museum, and, well, it's basically the gist of the entire game. Now, to be fair, these sorts of games aren't necessarily my jam, but it's cool that people like them, and you know what's even cooler? That the last game they made, 2 Point Hospital, runs pretty well on Steam Deck. So I am inclined to believe that, much like their last game, this game will run pretty well on Steam Deck. And yes, this game also releases on March the 4th. Air is a near 25-year-old visual novel that's getting an HD remaster of sorts. On top of remastered visuals, the game also includes voice acting. The Windows version of the game never had voice acting, at least until this newest version coming to Steam. I do have to confess, I don't think I've actually played this one, but I have watched the anime adaptation many years ago. And if there's one thing that Key Visual Arts is really good at, it's making a really depressing game. And yes, it's a 25-year-old visual novel being remastered. Of course it'll run well on Steam Deck. The Air remaster releases on March the 5th. Split Fiction is Joseph Fair's latest game, and I swear, didn't I just talk about this game? Well, whatever. It's a 2-player co-op adventure, and yes, the co-op part is mandatory. You can either play it locally or play it online, and the cool thing is that you only have to buy 1 copy of the game for you and a friend to play with online. Which is great. I think more games should do this, but at the same time though, this is a co-op mandatory game. Like, you have to play with 2 players, you can't play it by yourself. So I will mention that the game is split screen, yes, even in online play, so this is an important consideration to make. So EA has said that this game is Steam Deck compatible. That doesn't necessarily guarantee it'll run well, especially given that the game is going to be split screen all the time. But I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt here, because I mean, it doesn't look like a super graphically demanding game. You could always just lower the graphics. So I think my verdict is, this game will probably run okay on Steam Deck so long as you reduce the graphical quality. Split Fiction releases on March the 6th. Fragpunk is a multiplayer 5v5 hero shooter with cards. So on top of having different characters with different abilities and different weapons, you also have cards that you can activate per round to essentially change how the game is played. And as for the developer's own promises, all of these cards are free to unlock forever. And yes, the game is free to play. I will say esports games tend to run better because they're made to run on, potato PCs. The Steam Deck being one such a potato PC. We should also question whether or not they'll enable anti-cheat support on the Steam Deck because, well, as you know, one of the biggest issues with online games on the Steam Deck is whether or not these games actually support Steam Deck, if you can play these multiplayer games on the Steam Deck. So if the anti-cheat supports it, then I'm inclined to believe that yes, this game will run on Steam Deck, but if not, then, well, we already know the answer. Fragpunk also releases on the 6th. Suikoden 1 and 2 are getting a remaster, and I'm gonna level with you, I've never played a Suikoden game before, but I have heard a lot about them, especially in regards to how many characters there are in each Suikoden game. Yes, Konami has fallen to the wayside, but I do think releasing their older titles on modern systems is a good step in the right direction. The big question is, will they actually make new games eventually? Suikoden is an older JRPG from the PlayStation era, and this one is based on the PSP port in particular, so Yeah, I'm inclined to believe that this game will run pretty well on Steam Deck. The Suikoden 1 and 2 remaster releases on March the 6th. Dragonkin the Banished is an ARPG, kind of like Diablo or Path of Exile. It actually looks pretty fun, and there's a demo available to play right now. And according to Steam Deck HQ, the demo runs quite well on Steam Deck. At all low settings, you can get above 30 FPS. It is worth mentioning that the game is early access, so there's a good chance that the game will run even better on Steam Deck as time goes on, as the game gets more optimized. Dragonkin the Banished enters early access on May the 6th. Beyond the Ice Palace 2 is a sequel to a little known game that was released on the ZX Spectrum, Amiga, and Commodore and such. And honestly, this game looks kinda sick. It looks like Castlevania, it might even be a Metroidvania. But regardless, it looks like some classic Castlevania-esque action, and honestly, I'm all for it. As a 2D game on the Steam Deck, I mean, come on dude. It's probably gonna run really well, I have no reason to believe otherwise. Beyond the Ice Palace 2 releases on March the 10th. Songs of Rats is an interesting game. It's almost like a text-based adventure. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of World of Horror, but it's not quite the same, I don't think. Honestly, World of Horror is super engrossing, but that revolves around solving cases. This here revolves around surviving a labyrinth of sorts. While this is a text-based game, I think a lot of the options here are mouse-oriented. Aside from having to name your character, I don't really think there's a whole lot of typing to do, so it's not like one of those text-based adventure games where you have to type out everything you want to do. As a text-based game, I don't really think performance really matters on the Steam Deck. I mean, I'm for certain it'll run at 60 FPS, but let's be real, if you want to maximize battery life, then maybe drop the frame rate down to like 10 FPS. You'll save a lot of battery, and to be honest, I mean, it doesn't seem that the game has a whole lot of animation anyways, so it's not a huge loss, whatever. This game also releases on March the 10th. Aneurysm 4 is an interesting one. It's a game that is essentially a dystopian simulator, online multiplayer. Not like an MMO though, no. It takes place in a dystopian city, and you get to choose to be part of the rebellion, or be one of the oppressors, or, in a plot twist, you can just be a regular civilian. Now, I don't know anyone that would reasonably just be a random civilian, but you could be. You could be whatever, to be honest. Now, it does sound promising, but these games are kind of different when every player knows that this is just a game and nothing really matters what you do. It'd be a bit of a different story if they actually lived in this dystopian universe, right? Whatever the case is, this looks like a bloody good time. As for whether or not this will run on Steam Deck, I mean, there's a good chance it'll run on Steam Deck, but the big question is, do you want to play this on Steam Deck? There's no indication that there's a single player mode for this game at all. And I mean, that's fine, but at the same time though, you're probably going to want to be at home playing this anyways. But in terms of graphics, I mean, yes, this game probably looks like it'll run well on Steam Deck. And plus, player-hosted servers. That's pretty cool. Anyways, Aneurysm 4 releases on March the 10th as well. Now, this is one of the big releases this month, Rise of Ronin. It was initially a PS5 exclusive, but now it's coming to PC, and it's made by the same guys that made Nioh and Nioh 2, of course. Honestly, Rise of the Ronin was one of the few PS5 exclusives I was super jealous of because it didn't come to PC at launch. But hey, now it's on PC. It's gonna be awesome. Now, I love me some open world samurai games, and honestly, this looks like it's gonna be a blast. Now, one has to wonder if this game will run well on Steam Deck, and looking at the minimum requirements, it doesn't look nearly as demanding as some of the other games I've seen that released this year. I'd be inclined to believe that maybe this game will run okay on the Steam Deck, like a minimum of 30 FPS on all low settings. I just hope that we can actually lower this game down and maybe get this game to run at a 60 FPS, because a game like this demands 60 FPS minimum, in my opinion. Rise of the Ronin also releases on March the 10th. WWE isn't a game series I'm super interested in these days, but it is a big major release, so I do have to talk about it. So apparently last year's WWE game ran pretty well on Steam Deck, at least according to some videos on YouTube. So I am inclined to believe that yes, at low settings, you could probably expect the same thing as well. I mean, these wrestling games don't really change all that much aside from the roster. But honestly, I think wrestling games peaked during the GameCube era. WWE 2K25 releases on March the 14th. The My Sims games were generally speaking Wii and DS games, but they finally come to PC. Now, to be honest, I've never played these, so I don't know how they differ from the regular Sims, aside from the art style, but hey, It's on PC now. I'm inclined to believe that both My Sims and My Sims Kingdom will run pretty well on Steam Deck, and both will be releasing on March the 18th, all as part of the My Sims Cozy Bundle. To be honest, the only reason why I'm talking about Bleach Rebirth of Souls is because I kind of have a soft spot for Bleach. Now, to be honest, this game looks like every other anime arena game I've ever seen. Anything from the Dragon Ball Z games to the lower budget games like Jump Force, or heck, even games like, I don't know, the Demon Slayer Arena Fighter, or other games like the My Hero Academia one, or the One Punch Man one. Oh, you get the point. Bandai Namco takes basically every Shonen Jump license out there and they just turn it into basically the same game. And to be honest, the only good one of these that's come out in recent memory is Sparking Zero. Oh, and Fighter Z doesn't count because it's actually a fighting game, by the way. To be honest, they should just make Fighter Z for everything Shonen Jump. That would be kind of cool. They should do that. Oh right, we're talking about this game. Yeah, I think this game will run pretty well on Steam Deck. I mean, Sparking Zero does. Bleach Rebirth of Souls releases on March the 20th. Honestly, I've never played an Atelier game, but maybe I should. Starting with this one, Atelier Yumiya, The Alchemist of Memories, and The Envisioned Land. Most JRPGs tend to be a great fit for the Steam Deck. Maybe it's because they're not as graphically demanding, or maybe because the gameplay doesn't demand super quick reflexes like most action games. I don't know. I am inclined to believe that you could run this game at a comfortable 30 FPS. If you could run at 60, that's even better, but honestly, 30 FPS is probably my minimum here. Atelier Yumiya also releases on March the 20th. The first Berserk Kazan is based on Dungeon Fighter Online, or better known internationally as Dungeon and Fighter. I don't remember that much about DFO lore, but what I do remember is that Kazan is like one of the demons inside the Slayer's arm. Like the Slayer class, I mean. What is interesting though is that they went for a more Souls-like approach to the game as opposed to something like DFO, which was a crazy combo-heavy, like beat-em-up MMORPG. That said, the game does have a demo, and if you try the demo, you'll find that the game runs quite well. Like on low settings, you can almost hit 60 FPS. If the game were a little more optimized, you could probably hit 60 FPS. And even on maximum settings, you can hover around like the mid 40s. You could feasibly lock the frame rate down to 40 FPS and have a fairly smooth experience on all maximum graphics. But honestly, if you want to save battery life, then maybe turn down the graphical details. But aside from that though, the fact that this game runs pretty well on Steam Deck is pretty awesome. The first Berserker releases on March the 27th. AI Limit is another anime-themed Souls-like, but this one takes more inspiration from the likes of Code Vein, which was the first anime-themed Souls-like. This one has the potential to be quite good, but I'd really have to see more of the game to make a determination for myself. There is a demo available, and when I checked out the demo ran pretty well on Steam Deck, all things considered, so I'm sure the base game will run a little better because the demo is pretty old at this point. And if you're wondering, no, this has nothing to do with AI in like the modern sense. AI Limit releases on March the 27th. Tower of Kalemonvo very much invokes that old school Diablo aesthetic. I don't really know what the story is going to be like, to be honest, but if it's anything like Diablo, no one's going to care about the story. I mean, I played the hell out of Diablo 4, and I couldn't tell you a single thing that happens in that game. Besides, I don't know, we kill Lilith or some bullshit like that. So I will mention, there is a demo. I've tried out the demo on Steam Deck. The game runs great, but the demo is also just like early game. There's no telling what end game's going to look like because, I mean, it's a demo, right? But it is worth mentioning that this game does not have native controller support, and according to the developers on the forums, there won't be native controller support at launch, and that'll come later. So if you do want to try this out on Steam Deck, then you better learn how to use Steam Input. Tower of Kalemonvo releases on March the 28th. Psycho Patrol R is a game that's simply indescribable. I mean, it's an FPS of sorts, but I mean, what sort of game is this? But again, I guess this is because this is made by the same guys that made Cruelty Squad, and that game is also kind of indescribable. At least if you've never played it before. I know I haven't. I probably should though. It's less of a question of if the Steam Deck can handle it, because believe me, it probably will handle it. But can your brain handle it? And that is a little more difficult to answer for you. Honestly, it kind of looks like a mecha game, and according to the game's description, it is a mecha game, so I'm basically required to pick it up. Psycho Patrol R releases on March the 31st. Dual Corp is a Souls-like with procedurally generated worlds. It also has a directional based combat mechanic where you can slash left or right or vertically, and you also have to guard in the direction as well. Now, honestly, you know what makes a good Souls-like? The level design. And I'm curious to see how procedural generation messes with the level design in this game, because, I mean, think of it as almost like a roguelike almost. Now, while I have no doubts that this game will probably run well on Steam Deck, I am curious to see if the entire concept works as a game, because it'd be interesting. Now, this game has no official release date, but it is slated for release sometime this March. Oh, and there's also additionally co-op as well. Now let's talk games that probably won't run well on Steam Deck. Chernobylite 2 Exclusion Zone looks like a pretty fun game. It's an action RPG, open world sort of game, taking place in a nuclear post-apocalyptic land, and I mean, it kind of looks like it's up my alley. I'm thinking of games like Stalker. I want to play games like that, and this looks like it's right up my alley. The big question though is whether or not this game will run well on Steam Deck, and yes, in an FAQ, the developers did mention the Steam Deck by name, but they did mention that as of right now, they're not able to fully optimize for the Steam Deck just yet, as they're making a PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC version all at once. The previous game had Steam Deck support, and even had some Steam Deck specific optimizations. But this one, well, the game's going to be in early access, so there is no Steam Deck optimization just yet. And there's a good chance this game probably won't run that well on Steam Deck. Given that this is an early access game running Unreal Engine 5, there's a good chance that this game won't run that well on Steam Deck, even if you do turn down all the graphical details. There may be a chance later in the future when the game is optimized for Steam Deck, the developers say that they want to do it, but that won't happen at launch, at least early access launch. That'll probably happen sometime later. Chernobylite 2 releases on March the 6th. Assassin's Creed Shadows is likely to be 2025's most controversial game release. And boy oh boy, Ubisoft has a long uphill battle to fight. To be honest, an Assassin's Creed game set in Japan would have been something I would have killed for like 10 years ago. But times have changed, and Ubisoft isn't the company they were 10 years ago. Now, to be honest, I've seen some of the gameplay in Assassin's Creed Shadows, and it looks pretty interesting, all things considered. But I do have to be wary because, I mean, this is Ubisoft we're dealing with after all. Not to mention this month also has Rise of the Ronin, so you've got 2 samurai-themed action-adventure games. Not to mention we're supposed to get a bunch of ninja-themed games on the horizon this year as well, so it's gonna be kind of a packed year for samurai and ninja enthusiasts. Unfortunately though, it seems like Assassin's Creed Shadows won't run well on Steam Deck. I forget which Ubisoft exec said this, but they confirmed that the Steam Deck is simply too low spec to handle Assassin's Creed even at its lowest. So I guess if you want to play as a samurai, play Rise of the Ronin. But if you want to play as a ninja, play, I don't know, play the Ninja Gaiden games. Or play Sekiro. There's no shortage of good ninja games on the Steam Deck. But if you want to play this on PC, then just know that this game releases on March the 20th. Killing Floor 3 is more of that zombie killing goodness you crave. Now, you shouldn't judge a game based on its closed beta performance, but I've seen some footage of it, and let's just say, even on all low settings with XeSS enabled, or FSR for that matter, the game just does not run above 30 FPS. Heck, I don't even think it hits 30 FPS most of the time. It hovers around the upper 20s. So unfortunately, it seems like this game just is not suitable for Steam Deck. But hey, this game releases on March the 25th. Atom Fall is an open world game seemingly inspired by Fallout, but this time it's British. It seems like a pretty cool game though. The big question though is if this game will run well on Steam Deck. And without any real indication of whether or not this game will run on Steam Deck, or if the developers even claim they'll support the Steam Deck, it's kind of hard to know for certain, and to be honest at this point, I'm inclined to believe that maybe this game won't run that well on Steam Deck, especially given it's a big open world game that's essentially a major AAA game. I could be wrong though, and I sure hope I am, because honestly it'd be kind of fun to play this on the Steam Deck. But that said, if you're interested in playing this on your PC when it comes out, it releases on March the 27th. You guys should come back and let me know if this game runs well on Steam Deck, okay? Kingmakers makes you go back in time with your pickup truck and with your plethora of different modern weaponry, like guns. Now, this game is one big meme. It's basically a meme game, but it does look like a lot of fun. It almost kind of reminds me of Mountain Blade. And on that front, it's time to talk about if this game will run well on Steam Deck. Look at the amount of enemies that are on screen. I think this game will probably struggle to run well on Steam Deck, almost entirely due to CPU issues. And also, let's not forget the graphical details as well. Now, while there's no official release date, Kingmakers is supposed to be released sometime in March. March has quite a few high-profile releases, some of which may not necessarily play all that well on the Steam Deck, such as Assassin's Creed Shadows. But there are plenty more games this month that'll run quite well on Steam Deck, whether they're also other high-profile releases or indie games that I think I would enjoy. All I can really say is, keep gaming and be aware of the Ides of March. Have a good day now. If you like this video, please press the like button and check out our other videos. And if you like those other videos as well, be sure to press the subscribe button and share the good gospel of high-tech lowlife with your friends. Furthermore, we have a community Discord for enlightened individuals such as you. And if you wish to further support high-tech lowlife, be sure to check out our Patreon page. Links in the description.